Hi everybody, my name is Sarah and welcome back to Future Zoologist Academy. Today we are learning about a very cool but very dangerous group of reptiles who you may actually hear before you see. Today we're learning all about rattlesnakes. Let's get into it. Rattlesnakes are a group of venomous snakes that belong to the pit viper family. There are 36 identified species of rattlesnakes with dozens of different subspecies. And we do find rattlesnakes in a wide variety of habitats, but they especially live in dry places like in deserts, though we can also find them in places like grasslands and forests or even marshes. However, we only find rattlesnakes in North America and South America, all the way from Canada, all the way down to Argentina. Rattlesnakes are, of course, named for their very iconic rattle. And their rattle is actually made up of modified scales. So, like their regular scales, they're made out of a substance called keratin. And keratin is actually the same stuff that makes up our fingernails and our hair as well. Each segment of a rattlesnake's rattle is called a button. Yes, like a button you would have on your shirt or your pants. And each time a rattlesnake sheds, they grow a new button. And there is a very popular myth that you can actually tell how old a rattlesnake is by looking at how long its rattle is, but this isn't true. You might be able to make a very rough estimate of about how old they are using their rattle, but as the rattle gets older, it gets weaker and it can very easily break and become shorter. In addition to that, how often a rattlesnake sheds and grows a new button depends on things in the environment, like how much food is available, which is going to determine how fast they're growing and how often they're shedding. The rattlesnake's rattle is a very important adaptation. Its purpose is to warn predators of their danger so that the predators will stay back. And even though rattlesnakes are quite dangerous, they do have quite a few predators. Lots of birds of prey, like hawks, prey on them. So do things like different types of cats, coyotes, ravens. There are even other types of snakes, like king snakes, which will eat rattlesnakes. Now there is a really special species of rattlesnake called the Santa Catalina rattlesnake who lives on an island in the Gulf of California where there are no land predators. And over time, this rattlesnake has actually lost its rattle because it no longer has any predators to warn of its danger. If you'd like to learn more about the Santa Catalina rattlesnake, be sure to visit our species spotlight. As we said before, a rattlesnake's rattle does a great job warning predators of their danger. When they feel threatened, a rattlesnake vibrates its tail back and forth very rapidly. And the sound that their rattle makes is not because there's something inside of the rattles, it's because of those buttons. So each of those buttons are very loosely connected to each other. And when a rattlesnake vibrates its tail, each button clinks and clanks against the one next to it and makes a sound. And rattlesnakes can vibrate their tail 50 times in a single second, which is why that rattle shaking sounds more like a vibration because they're moving their tail so incredibly fast. Now, if that rattling sound doesn't work, that's okay because rattlesnakes do have a very good backup plan, and it lives inside of their mouth. Rattlesnakes are venomous and they have two very large fangs in their mouth. They also have venom glands in their mouth which produce that toxic venom. And when a rattlesnake bites into something, muscles around their venom gland squeeze and it sends the venom through tubes into their teeth and then gets injected into whatever they might be biting. When a rattlesnake's mouth is closed, their big fangs kind of fold up and lay flat against the roof of their mouth. Now this venom does have two very important jobs, one of which we already discussed today, which is to protect themselves from predators. The other is to catch prey. Like all snakes, rattlesnakes are carnivores. They are meat eaters. And what exactly they eat does depend on where they live and how big they are, but most rattlesnakes are feeding on things like mice and rats and squirrels and other small mammals, but they may also feed on things like frogs and lizards and birds. Now, of course, being able to eat their food is very important, but first, they must find their food, and they do that using two very special adaptations. Like all snakes, rattlesnakes have the ability to smell with their tongue, thanks to something called their vomeronasal organ, or their Jacobson's organ, which is located near the roof of their mouth. When a snake sticks out its tongue and picks up all those smell particles from the air, they flick them inside of their mouth where their Jacobson's organ receives it. But in addition to their sense of smell, they have something else very special that helps them to find their food. Remember at the start of our lesson when we said that rattlesnakes are a group of pit vipers? Well, they get that name pit viper because of these very special pits that they and other pit vipers have on their face that have the ability to detect heat. These heat-sensing pits are actually sensing infrared radiation, and infrared radiation is given off when something is giving off heat. For example, a warm-blooded mouse who's scurrying around. Being able to use their heat-sensing pits is especially helpful for rattlesnakes when they're hunting at nighttime, when their sense of sight might not be as helpful. Rattlesnakes are usually considered to be ambush hunters, meaning they sneak attack their prey. Rattlesnakes have fantastic camouflage. Even members of the same species might have different colors based on the colors that are in their environment. So they'll sit and wait, and when their prey gets close enough, they strike and kill their prey with their venom. Now, rattlesnakes are not usually eating or biting each other, but we do sometimes see rattlesnakes in a bit of a wrestling match. Sometimes male rattlesnakes will fight with each other in these wrestling matches when they're competing for a female. Most rattlesnakes breed in the summer, and around this time, females begin releasing a pheromone into the air that allows the males to find her. Pheromones are like special chemicals that are used for communication. Think about them kind of like a smell that only members of the same species would be able to smell. Now, after rattlesnakes breed, this is where things get a little bit special, because most other snakes and other reptiles lay eggs, but rattlesnakes do not. They actually have live offspring instead. Now, after the offspring are born, usually the female will not stick around too long and she'll kind of go off on her own after a couple days. But there are a couple species like the Arizona black rattlesnake, which actually will stick around for a while and help to care for and protect their offspring. Now, with all of these amazing adaptations, like great camouflage and a venomous bite and a warning sound, some rattlesnakes can live upwards of 20 years in the wild, but unfortunately, many of them don't live that long because of people. Some of the main threats for rattlesnakes are things like habitat loss, because the human population is getting bigger, which means we need more space for cities, farms, and roads, and we often take that space away from wildlife like rattlesnakes. The other main threat that rattlesnakes face is unfortunately fear. Because rattlesnakes are so dangerous, when they end up living too close to people, people hunt them, kill them to get them out of the area to protect their families or wherever they might be living. There are even some states in the United States that host what are called rattlesnake roundups, which are these huge rattlesnake killing events that are hosted like fairs or carnivals, where each year they kill thousands of rattlesnakes. And the people who host these events often argue things like the venom they collect is used to make anti-venom, or the data they collect is used for research. But what we found is there is more bad that comes out of these events than good. Because like every animal, rattlesnakes have a very important job in their environment, and their job is to keep population of small animals, like mice and rats and squirrels, in check. So the more we hunt rattlesnakes, the bigger the population of those animals are going to get, and not only will that be a bit of a nuisance, it will also cause the environment to become unbalanced. So even though rattlesnakes sometimes get a bad reputation, if you happen to live near them and they get a little too close to you, there are lots of organizations that you can call that will come collect the rattlesnake and take them back out into the wild where they're meant to be. All right, you guys, thank you so very much for joining me today for our rattlesnake lesson. If you would like to test your knowledge using quizzes, activities, projects, and so much more, be sure to visit that link below. And I cannot wait to see you at our next Future Zoologist Academy lesson. Thank you very much.